The message came at 3 in the morning, Earth time. It was weak and broken, traveling across the dark emptiness of space for who knows how long. The computers at Seoul Interstellar Institute caught it first. Red lights began flashing. Alarms rang through empty hallways. Was sleeping at her desk again. She had fallen asleep while studying old alien languages, her face pressed against a pile of papers. The alarm woke her up. She wiped her eyes and looked at her screen. Strange symbols filled the display. Her heart began to beat faster. "This is new," she whispered to herself. She worked through the night, cup after cup of cold coffee. Her fingers moved across the keyboard without stopping. By morning, she had translated enough to understand, and understanding made her sick to her stomach. The message was a cry for help. A species called the had sent it. They were being killed, not in a war, not in a fair fight. They were being harvested like animals by something called the Dominion. They had no weapons, no warships. They were peaceful beings who had never hurt anyone, and now they were dying. Sent her translation to the Terran Council immediately. Far above Earth on station, Admiral Park received the report while eating his breakfast. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen many battles in his life. He had lost friends. He had made hard choices. He thought his fighting days were over. He read the translation 3 times, then he pushed his food away. He was not hungry anymore. The Terran Council met that same day. Representatives from all 12 human star systems gathered in the Great Hall. They argued for hours. Some said it was not their problem. There were strangers. Humanity had its own troubles. Why should human soldiers die for aliens they had never met? Others disagreed. They said humanity could not ignore suffering. They said doing nothing was the same as helping the killers. The debate went back and forth. Voices grew loud, fists hit tables. Then someone played the rest of the message. The holographic display showed images they had sent. Their sanctuary prime was burning, cities lay in ruins, and in the streets Dominion soldiers were gathering civilians. There were small creatures with 4 arms and large glowing eyes. They looked gentle, harmless. In the images, they were being pushed into metal containers. Children were being separated from their parents. The sounds of crying filled the council hall. One image showed a young child reaching for its mother as soldiers dragged it away. The mother was screaming. Then the image cut to black. The council hall fell silent. Lieutenant was standing at the back of the room. She was young, only 28 years old. She was not supposed to speak at council meetings. Junior officers stayed quiet and listened. Everyone knew the rules, but stepped forward anyway. "If we do nothing," she said, her voice clear and strong, "we become no different from the ones doing this. We have the power to help. If we choose not to use it, then we are guilty too." The old politicians stared at her. Some were angry at her rudeness, but others were nodding slowly. Admiral Park stood up from his chair. The room turned to look at him. He was the most respected military commander humanity had. When he spoke, people listened. "I have fought many battles," he said quietly. "I have killed enemies and buried friends. I always told myself it was for protection, for defense, for our survival." He paused and looked at the frozen image of the child on the screen. "But what is survival worth if we lose our souls? What kind of species do we want to be?" He turned to face the council. "They will fall in 30 days, maybe less. We can reach them in 12 if we leave now." His voice grew harder. "I am not asking for permission. I am telling you what I am going to do. Anyone who wants to stop me can try." No one tried. Within 6 hours, the order went out to every human military base. Ships that had been sleeping in came alive. Engines roared. Crews rushed to their stations. Weapons were loaded. Supplies were gathered. On the carrier Hammer of Dawn, Captain addressed his pilots. Among them was a woman with short black hair and cold eyes. She had joined the military after pirates killed her younger brother 10 years ago. She understood what it meant to lose someone you loved. She understood the anger that never went away. "We are going into enemy space," Captain told them. "We are going to fight an empire that has destroyed entire species. Many of us will not come back." He looked at each pilot one by one. "But somewhere out there, children are being taken from their mothers. People are being murdered for no reason except that they are weak. I cannot live in a galaxy where that happens and nobody cares." Nodded slowly. For the first time in years, she felt something other than anger. She felt purpose. On Earth, packed a small bag. She was joining the fleet on a diplomatic ship. Someone needed to talk to them. Someone needed to tell them that help was coming. She looked out her window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, a species was dying, but not for long. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. 400 warships formed up around him. 2 million soldiers waited for his command. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "Today we go to war, not for land, not for resources, not for revenge." His voice was calm but firm. "We go because someone asked for help, and we are human. Helping is what we do." The fleet jumped to hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light, and humanity went to war. The human fleet moved through hyperspace like a river of fire. 400 warships, battleships with guns that could crack moons, carriers filled with fighters, troop transports packed with soldiers ready to die for strangers. Nothing like this had ever been assembled before. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the stars blur past. He had not slept in 2 days. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that child reaching for its mother. Lieutenant worked at her station nearby. She was checking enemy positions and planning attack routes. Her fingers moved fast across the controls. She was scared, but she did not show it. Fear was normal. Letting fear control you was not. "Admiral," she said without looking up, "we will reach Dominion space in 6 hours." Park nodded, and then the real work begins. On the carrier Hammer of Dawn, the pilots were preparing their fighters, sat in the cockpit of her ship, running system checks. Her fighter was old but reliable. She had named it Brother, after the sibling she had lost. She talked to it sometimes when no one was listening. "We are going to hurt them," she whispered to the ship. "We are going to make them pay for what they do to the weak." Captain walked through the hangar speaking to each pilot. He knew all their names, he knew their families, he knew their fears. A good captain knew his people. He stopped its fighter. "How are you feeling?" "Ready," she said. Her voice was flat, empty. Studied her face. He saw the anger there, the pain that never healed. "Do not let hate make you stupid," he said gently. "Hate is fuel, but too much fuel makes you burn." Did not answer, but she heard him. On the diplomatic ship Olive Branch was studying everything humanity knew about the. It was not much. They were peaceful. They had never developed weapons. Their technology was simple. They had farms and schools and hospitals. They made music and art. They raised their children with love. And now they were being slaughtered. Marine Sergeant sat across from her, cleaning his rifle. He was a big man with gentle hands. His face was covered in old scars, but his eyes were kind. He had been a soldier for 15 years. He had killed many enemies, but he found no joy in killing. He did it because sometimes killing was necessary to protect the innocent. "You should try to sleep," he told. She shook her head. "I cannot. I keep thinking about them. Though they must be so scared. They sent that message into space not knowing if anyone would hear it, not knowing if anyone would care." Nodded slowly. Someone heard, someone cared. "But will we be in time?" He did not answer. He did not know. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Dominion territory. Alarms immediately began ringing. Sensors detected 6 enemy cruisers moving to intercept. On the Indomitable, Lieutenant reported the contact. "6 Dominion warships, Admiral. They are hailing us." "Put them on screen." The display showed a creature that made stomach turn. The Dominion commander was tall and thin, with gray skin and too many teeth. Its eyes were black and empty like holes in space. "Human vessels," it said, its voice like metal scraping metal. "You are trespassing in Dominion space. Turn back now or be destroyed." Admiral Park stepped forward. His face showed no fear. "I am Admiral Park of the Terran Accord. We have come for the. You will release them and withdraw from their space. This is not a request." The Dominion commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "They are our property. Their planet is ours. Their lives are ours to take. You are 6 days from your nearest base with only 400 ships. We have thousands. Go home, little humans, before we add your species to our harvest." Park smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I was hoping you would say something like that." He cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. "Target all 6 ships. Fire everything." The Dominion commander had expected negotiation, threats and counter-threats, the slow dance of military posturing. That was how civilized species behaved. Humans were not civilized, not when children were being murdered. The Indomitable's main guns spoke first. Beams of light brighter than suns cut through space. Missiles followed, hundreds of them, spreading out like angry hornets. The other human ships joined in. The darkness of space turned white with weapons fire. The 6 Dominion cruisers tried to raise shields, too slow. They tried to return fire, too late. In less than 4 minutes all 6 ships were gone, not damaged, not crippled. Gone, reduced to atoms and dust. Silence filled the bridge of the Indomitable. Lieutenant stared at her screen. All enemy ships destroyed, no survivors. Admiral Park nodded. "Send a message on all Dominion frequencies. Let them hear it clearly." He spoke slowly, making sure every word was understood. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Accord. We are coming for the. Anyone who stands in our way will die. Anyone who harms another civilian will die. This is not a war for territory or resources. This is a war of extermination. Your extermination. Unless you release thee and retreat to your own space, we will hunt you to the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath. You wanted to know what humans do when someone asks for help. Now you know." He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. "Full speed to Sanctuary Prime. We have people to save." The fleet surged forward into enemy territory. Behind them, Dominion commanders received the message and the footage of their patrol's destruction. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they felt something unfamiliar. Fear. The Dominion was waiting for them at the nebula. 200 warships formed a wall of metal and guns across the human fleet's path. The nebula glowed purple and red behind them, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Admiral Park studied the enemy formation from the bridge of the Indomitable. The Dominion ships were arranged in perfect lines, their positions exact and mathematical. It was how they always fought. Order, precision, no creativity. Lieutenant reported the numbers. 200 enemy ships, Admiral. They outnumber us significantly in this engagement. Park almost smiled. They think numbers win wars. Do they not? Sometimes, but not today. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships execute pattern wolf. Carriers launch all fighters. Show them how humans fight. The human fleet broke apart like a flock of birds scattering before a storm. Ships moved in different directions, forming small groups that swept around the enemy flanks. There was no rigid formation, no predictable pattern. Each captain knew the goal and found their own way to reach it. The Dominion commanders were confused. This was not how war worked. Where was the order? Where was the discipline? On the Hammer of Dawn, Captain watched his pilots launch into the void. 60 fighters poured from the carrier's belly, their engines burning bright. Led the first squadron. "Remember your training," said over the radio. "Stay alive, watch your and make every shot count." Did not respond. She was already focused on the enemy ahead. Her fingers rested lightly on her weapon's controls. Her breathing was slow and steady. She was not scared, she was not excited, she was empty, a weapon waiting to be fired. The first Dominion fighters came to meet them. They flew in tight formations just like their larger ships, easy to predict, easy to avoid. Rolled her fighter sideways and slipped between two enemy ships. They tried to follow her movements. They were too slow. She fired. One enemy fighter exploded. She turned, fired again. Another explosion. She moved through the battle like a ghost, appearing and disappearing, leaving death behind her. "Enemy fighters down," she reported. Her voice was calm, almost bored, moving to secondary targets. The battle became chaos. Human ships attacked from every direction. The Dominion tried to maintain their formations, but it was impossible. Every time they turned to face one threat, another appeared behind them. The Indomitable charged straight into the center of the enemy fleet. Its shields flashed and sparked as enemy weapons hit them. But the old battleship kept moving forward, its guns blazing. Admiral Park stood steady on the bridge as the ship shook around him. "Forward batteries, target their command ship," he ordered. "Let us cut off the head." The Dominion command ship was huge, 3 times the size of the Indomitable. It sat in the middle of the enemy fleet like a king on a throne. Its shields were strong. Its armor was thick. It died anyway. The Indomitable's main guns fired in perfect sequence. The first shots broke the shields. The second shots cracked the armor. The third shots reached the core. The command ship broke apart in a ball of fire that lit up the nebula. Without their commander, the Dominion fleet began to fall apart. Ships collided with each other. Orders were confused and contradictory. Panic spread from ship to ship. Saw a Dominion cruiser trying to escape. It was running away from the battle, heading for open space. She pushed her fighter to maximum speed and followed. "Ghost, return to formation," Captain ordered. She ignored him. The cruiser was right there. She could see escape pods launching from its sides. The crew was abandoning ship. Good. She wanted them to know fear before they died. Her fighter's weapons tore into the cruiser's engines. The ship slowed. She circled around and hit the bridge. Once, twice, 3 times. The cruiser went dark and began to drift. But she had stayed too long. 3 Dominion fighters appeared behind her. Warning lights filled her cockpit. Her shields were failing. "Ghost, pull back," shouted. There was no time. The enemy was too close. She could not escape. So she did not try to escape. She turned her fighter around and flew straight at the lead enemy. At the last second, she fired everything she had and pulled the ejection lever. Her cockpit exploded away from the fighter as the rest of her ship crashed into the Dominion vessel. Both ships disappeared in a ball of flame. Floated in space, watching the explosion fade. Her suit had enough air for 2 hours, enough time to be rescued, maybe. She did not care. She had hurt them. That was enough. Far below, on a moon near Sanctuary Prime, the first human Marines were landing. Sergeant led his squad through a Dominion processing facility. The building was gray and cold, filled with metal cages and strange machines. Inside the cages, prisoners waited to die. They were thin and weak. Many had wounds that had not been treated. They looked at the human soldiers with wide, glowing eyes. Raised his hand, telling his squad to stop. He approached the nearest cage slowly. Inside, a female held 2 small children close to her body. She was shaking with fear. "It is okay," said softly. He did not know if she could understand him. "We are here to help. You are safe now." The translator in his helmet turned his words into the language. The female's eyes went even wider. She made a sound, something between a cry and a laugh. The Marines broke open the cages one by one. Hundreds of prisoners stumbled out into freedom. Many fell to the ground, too weak to stand. The Marines carried them, fed them, treated their wounds. An old female approached. She was small, barely reaching his chest. Her 4 arms trembled as she reached up to touch his face. Her fingers were gentle against his skin. "Why?" she asked through the translator. "We have nothing, we cannot pay you, we cannot help you. Why do you come?" Looked down at her. He thought about all the battles he had fought, all the people he had killed, all the nightmares that would never go away. "You asked for help," he said simply. "That is enough." The old began to cry. All around the facility, others were crying too, but these were not tears of fear or pain. They were tears of hope. Above the moon, the battle was ending. The Dominion fleet was broken. Half their ships were destroyed. The rest were running. The human fleet had won. But Admiral Park knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion would return with more ships, more soldiers, more anger. He opened a channel to his fleet. "Good work, but we are not done. Secure the area, rescue survivors, and prepare for the next battle." He paused and looked at the stars. "The hard part is still coming." The Dominion came back with 1,000 ships. They appeared at the edge of the Sanctuary Prime system like a swarm of metal insects. Battleships, cruisers, carriers, troop transports, everything the Empire had, everything they could gather. They had never committed so many ships to a single battle before. But they had never been humiliated before either. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the enemy fleet approach. His face showed nothing. Inside, his heart was cold. "How many?" he asked quietly. Lieutenant checked her displays. Her hands were steady, but her voice was not. "Over 1,000 confirmed, Admiral, possibly more behind them." The math was simple. 400 human ships against 1,000 Dominion vessels. Less than half their numbers. Not enough firepower. Not enough shields. Not enough miracles. Park turned to face his crew. They were looking at him, waiting. Some were scared, some were angry, all of them were ready to die. "I will not lie to you," he said. "The odds are against us. If we retreat now, we might save most of our fleet. We might survive." He paused. "But behind us are 3 billion who trusted us to protect them. Behind us are children who finally stopped being afraid because we told them they were safe. If we run, they die. All of them." He straightened his back. "I am not running. Anyone who wants to leave, go now. I will not stop you." No one moved. Not a single crew member, not a single ship in the fleet. Spoke for all of them. "We did not come this far to quit, Admiral." Park nodded slowly. Something that might have been pride flickered across his face. "Then let us teach the Dominion what happens when they threaten people under human protection." The battle began. The Dominion attacked with overwhelming force. They had learned from the last battle. This time they did not use rigid formations. They spread out, surrounding the human fleet from all sides. Weapons fire filled the space around Sanctuary Prime like deadly rain. The Indomitable took the first hits. Her shields flashed bright, then began to fail. Enemy beams cut into her armor. Explosions rocked the bridge. Crew members fell. Alarms screamed. But the old ship kept fighting. Park gripped the railing as the floor shook beneath him. "Return fire. All weapons. Do not stop until we are dead or they are." The Indomitable's guns roared. Around her, other human ships fought with the same desperate fury. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway. On the Hammer of Dawn, Captain watched his carrier dying. 3 Dominion cruisers had focused their fire on his ship. His shields were gone. His engines were damaged. Half his crew was dead or wounded. But his pilots were still out there. His children, his responsibility. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Get to the escape pods now." His crew looked at him with confusion. "Sir, what about you?" "Someone needs to fly this ship," he smiled. It was a tired smile, a final smile. "I have been a captain for 30 years. It is time I stopped asking others to die for me." He pushed them toward the escape pods. When the last one was gone, he sealed the bridge doors and took the pilot's controls himself. His hands remembered the movements from long ago, when he was young and thought he would live forever. The Dominion flagship was huge and ugly, sitting at the center of the enemy fleet. Its commander was directing the battle from there. If it died, the Dominion would lose their coordination. Maybe that would be enough. Pointed his dying carrier at the enemy flagship and pushed the engines to maximum. Warning lights covered every display. The ship groaned and screamed as it accelerated beyond its limits. He opened a final transmission. "This is Captain of the Terran carrier Hammer of Dawn. Tell my daughter I flew true. Tell her I loved her." He closed his eyes. The Hammer of Dawn hit the Dominion flagship at full speed. Both ships disappeared in an explosion that could be seen from the planet below. Watched from her fighter, she had been rescued after the last battle, given a new ship, sent back into the fight. Now she floated in space, staring at the fading light where her captain had died. She did not cry. She had forgotten how to cry years ago, but something broke inside her, something that had been frozen since her brother died. "For you," she whispered. Then she turned her fighter toward the nearest enemy and attacked with everything she had. On the Indomitable, things were falling apart. The bridge was on fire. Half the crew was dead. Lieutenant had blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. She ignored it. The weapons officer collapsed at his station. Dead or unconscious, she could not tell. She ran to take his place, her fingers finding the controls automatically. "Firing solution locked," she reported. Her voice was rough from smoke. "Targeting enemy cruiser." "Fire," Park ordered. She fired. The enemy cruiser died. Another took its place, then another. There were too many, always too many. Then something changed. New contacts appeared on the sensors. Hundreds of them, coming from behind the human fleet. For a terrible moment, thought it was more Dominion reinforcements. Then the identification signals came through. They were human ships. But not military ships. These were civilian vessels. Mining ships from the asteroid colonies, trading freighters from the outer systems, transport ships that had been retrofitted with weapons and armor. They were ugly and mismatched and barely combat-worthy. And there were hundreds of them. A transmission came through, a woman's voice, rough and determined. "This is the civilian fleet from the outer colonies. We saw the broadcasts. We saw what you were doing. We saw Captain die." Her voice cracked slightly. "We are not soldiers, but we are human, and we will not let you fight alone." The civilian ships crashed into the Dominion flanks. They were not skilled. They were not coordinated. Many of them died in the first minutes, but they kept coming. Miners who had never fired a weapon in their lives. Traders who had families waiting at home. Normal people who decided that some things were worth dying for. The Dominion fleet, already damaged from fighting the military ships, could not handle the new attack. Their formations broke. Their coordination failed. Ships began to retreat. Then more ships began to retreat. Then the retreat became a rout. Admiral Park watched the enemy flee. He was wounded, burned, exhausted beyond words, but he was alive, his ship was alive, and the enemy was running. "Do we pursue?" asked. Park shook his head slowly. "No, let them go. Let them tell their empire what happened here. Let them tell everyone what happens when you threaten people under human protection." He looked down at Sanctuary Prime. The planet was still there, still safe. 3 billion were still alive because humans had refused to give up. The price had been terrible, so many ships lost, so many lives ended, Captain, thousands of others, good people who would never go home. But they were free. Park closed his eyes and let himself feel the weight of victory. It was heavy, it was painful, and it was worth it. On the planet below, watched the battle end. She had been broadcasting everything, recording every moment, the courage, the sacrifice, the victory. Now she turned her camera to the sky, where the last Dominion ships were disappearing into the darkness. "This is broadcasting from Sanctuary Prime," she said. "Today, humanity showed the galaxy what we are made of. Today, we prove that when someone asks for help, we answer, no matter the cost. She paused, watching the stars. Remember this day. Remember the ones who died. Remember what they died for. She ended the broadcast and began to cry. The twin suns of Sanctuary Prime rose over a world that was finally free. 3 months had passed since the great battle. The Dominion Empire was crumbling. After their defeat at Sanctuary Prime, other enslaved species had risen up. The broadcasts from had spread across the galaxy. Everyone had seen what humans did when someone asked for help. Everyone had seen that the Dominion could be beaten. Now rebellions were burning on 100 worlds. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was falling apart. But on Sanctuary Prime there was peace. Admiral Park stood in the central plaza of the capital city. He was wearing his dress uniform, the one he saved for special occasions. The wounds from the battle had healed, but the scars remained. He did not mind. Scars were reminders of survival. Around him, thousands of had gathered. They were small creatures, barely reaching his waist. Their forearms moved constantly, expressing emotions that their soft voices could not capture. Their large, glowing eyes watched him with something he had not expected. Love. The High Elder approached him. She was ancient, her skin wrinkled and pale, but her eyes were bright and sharp. She carried a small crystal in her upper hands. It glowed with inner light. Admiral Park, she said through the translator. Her voice was formal but warm. On behalf of all, we thank you. You came when we called, you fought when we could not, you bled for us, died for us. She held up the crystal. This is our highest honor, the light of Sanctuary. We have not given it to anyone for 1,000 years. We give it to you now, to humanity. Park took the crystal carefully. It was warm in his hands, alive somehow. He looked at it for a long moment, thinking of all the people who had died to make this moment possible. I accept this, he said quietly, not for myself, but for everyone who gave their lives for your freedom, for Captain, for the miners and traders who came to help, for every soldier who did not come home. He looked up at the crowd. We did not come for glory. We did not come for reward. We came because you needed help. That is who humans are. That is who we choose to be. They made a sound together, a low hum that rose and fell like waves on a shore. It was their way of showing deep emotion, deep gratitude. Stood behind the admiral. She had been promoted to commander after the battle. The young officer who had spoken out of turn at the council meeting was now one of the most respected military leaders in the fleet. She watched the ceremony with quiet pride. They had done something good here, something worth remembering. Later that day, she visited the memorial they had built for the fallen. Thousands of names carved into black stone, human names, everyone who had died in the fight for freedom. She found Captain's name and traced the letters with her finger. We won, she whispered. You would have been proud. A shadow fell across her. She turned to find standing behind her. The pilot looked different than before. Something in her eyes had changed. The cold emptiness was still there, but it was softer now, touched by something almost like peace. Was holding her old squadron patch. She knelt down and placed it at the base of the memorial, right below Captain's name. He told me not to let hate make me stupid, she said quietly. I think I finally understand what he meant. Put a hand on her shoulder. No words were needed. In a small house on the edge of the capital city, Sargent was planting a garden. 3 children sat nearby, watching him work. They were orphans. Their parents had died in the Dominion processing facilities. They had no one left. Now they had him. The children did not speak much. They had seen terrible things, but they were safe now. Fed, warm, protected. Slowly, day by day, they were learning to smile again. The old female who had Touched's face in the processing facility visited often. She had become something like a grandmother to the children. She sat on the porch now, watching Dig in the dirt. You are staying, she said. It was not a question. Nodded, for a while, these children need someone, and I am tired of war. You could go home to Earth, to your own people. He looked at the three children. The smallest one was trying to help him plant seeds, her four small arms covered in dirt. She looked up at him and made a sound that might have been laughter. I am with my people, he said. Had returned to Earth as a hero. Her broadcasts had been seen by billions. She had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. Now universities wanted her to teach. Governments wanted her to advise. Media companies wanted her to tell more stories. She refused them all. Instead, she went back to her small office at the Seoul Interstellar Institute. She went back to studying languages, back to listening to the stars. Because somewhere out there, another species might be crying for help, and someone needed to hear them. The old female traveled to Earth as the first ambassador from Sanctuary Prime. She stood before the Terran Council in the same hall where, months ago, they had debated whether to help her people. She was small, fragile. Her voice was soft and translated by machines, but everyone listened. You did not know us, she said. You owed us nothing. We were strangers, aliens, different from you in every way. She paused, looking at each council member. Yet you came, you fought. You died for us, for people you had never met, for children you would never know. Her voice trembled. In all my years, in all my studies of the galaxy, I have never seen such a thing. I have seen empires built on greed. I have seen species destroy each other for resources. I have seen the strong prey upon the weak. She straightened her small body, standing as tall as she could. But I have never seen a species travel across the stars to save strangers simply because those strangers asked for help. I have never seen a species sacrifice their own children for the children of another world. Tears ran down her wrinkled face. We asked the void for salvation. We expected nothing. And you answered with fire and fury and love. We will never forget. The galaxy will never forget. You have shown us what it means to be human. She bowed deeply, all four arms touching the floor. Thank you from every who lives, from every child who will be born free. Thank you. Admiral Park rose from his seat. The council hall was silent. Every eye was on him. We are not saviors, he said. His voice was calm but strong. We are not conquerors. We are not gods. He looked at the ambassador. We are simply people who believe that when someone is drowning, you do not ask if they deserve to be saved. You jump in. He paused. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be, today, tomorrow, forever. The council hall erupted in applause. The sound rolled like thunder, shaking the walls. On Sanctuary Prime, the twin suns set slowly. The sky turned purple and gold. In the cities, children played in streets that had once been filled with fear. They laughed, they ran, they lived. In orbit above the planet, human warships kept watch, ready, waiting, protecting. And somewhere in the galaxy, another species in danger looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone would help them. They did not know it yet, but humanity was listening. And when the call came, humanity would answer. They always did.